Hi guys, my name is Shayla. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, I talk about motherhood, I talk about pregnancy. We do things pretty naturally, a little bit granola, stuff like that, eco-friendly. I have a 2-year-old-ish and a 2-month-old. If this is not your first time here, thank you for coming back. Today I'm going to talk to you about why postpartum number 2 was night and day difference than number 1. I feel like my bun here is drooping a little bit. With my first baby, she was born right at the start of COVID. There's a lot of factors that come into play here, but it was hard, really hard. A lot of the moms that I talked to that had babies at the start of the pandemic and now have had their second babies are like, pretty sure I had postpartum depression or anxiety or one of them. Like, it was gnarly. I'll get into all of them. There were a few things that I did differently this time that I wanted to share with you. Please take some of these tools and see if they are something that you want to do. If you're pregnant, these are also some tools that can help you postpartum, because for me, I was like, postpartum, yeah, the baby's here, that's great, whatever. Super concentrated on the birthing. Some people are super concentrated on the breastfeeding. I just didn't really give the 4th trimester a big thought. So I'm going to give you some tips on things that have helped me so much. Like the first time, I was crying a lot. Hi, I've got a little sidekick over here. The first thing I'm going to start with is this video is sponsored by Betterhelp, betterhelp.com. This is a perfect video to sponsor. I'm a huge advocate of therapy. I've been going for a long time. It's hard when you first start because you start unpacking all the things, and I'm crying in every session. You're like, I just want to stop, but that's when you can't stop. You unpack and then you sort. If you're having a tough time with motherhood and postpartum or pregnancy, I have a therapist and I've considered going more specific with it because I think it would be very helpful to talk to somebody who can be like, this is normal, this is how you might feel, this is not normal. What else is nice, if you're feeling overwhelmed and you're like, I don't even know how to find a therapist, instead of scrolling while you're breastfeeding, hop on this, get all set up. You do video calls, so you do it at your house or go in your car if you want a little bit of privacy. You can message them. I love this idea because sometimes I like schedule the appointment and then by the time I get to it, I'm like, I feel fine. Like, what did I even need to go to therapy for again? You can send these messages to them. Your therapist can be like, hey, remember when you said this? Or you can be like, oh, I remember feeling overwhelmed. Betterhelp.com/HEYSHAYLA. Check it out if you're feeling any kind of way. Thank you, Betterhelp, for sponsoring this video. I hope some of you can utilize it and feel better. So something that I did not do the first time that I did this time was encapsulate my placenta. I even think it's a little weird, so it's okay if you think it's a little weird. And there's no like hardcore research that says this helps. But everybody that I've talked to that have done it have said that it's helped. And from my experience, like I said, there's lots of things that are different from first time to second time, but this was one of them. And it's supposed to regulate your hormones. Because when you have your baby, your hormones just go poof. By taking your placenta, you get a little bit of those hormones to help regulate it a bit. If you're in Minnesota, I went through How To Mom. I'll put her link below. You literally bring a cooler to the hospital and you put your placenta in the cooler and then she comes and picks it up and she encapsulates them. I also had a tincture made, which is basically placenta infused vodka. It never expires. People say it's good for menopause. I don't know if I'll be able to keep mine until menopause. Yeah, I feel like a crack addict sometimes when I'm like having a bad day. I'm like, where's my placenta pills? Maybe that's not an appropriate joke, but Seth was like, bleh. I'm like, yo, I think it's nasty too, but if it's gonna make a big difference from last time, I'm on board. I had a friend that got a C-section like 48 hours after. She was sobbing. After 2 doses of her placenta, she was like back to normal. Consider it. Look into it. I have a whole podcast talking to a doula about encapsulating your placenta if you want more conversation about it. Another thing that I did was locked on my nutrition. So I have, again, a podcast with a clinical nutritionist. So she runs your labs and then treats you naturally with supplements and foods and different things like that. There's so much to say about her. During pregnancy, she helped me regulate my low moods because I would have these deep low moods, low energy, and she would help me to regulate all that. And we're working together postpartum, and I think that had a huge difference as well. I work with Ooh Wow Nutrition. I have a whole podcast where we go through my blood work and her recommendations. Can't recommend her enough. She lives in Hawaii. She's a clinical nutritionist, does things super naturally. She's awesome. So check her podcast out if you are like, I feel tired all the time or I have a super low mood. Can't recommend her enough. There's a book that I read called The First 40 Days, and it literally just tells you that you need to do nothing for the first 40 days. It's a Chinese culture, and I'm learning that it's that way in a bunch of other cultures. I was ready to to power freaking through. My business was amping up. I was getting this and that brand deals. Yes, I'm just gonna have this baby, but I've got this going on. And I read this book and I was like, I'm gonna take maternity leave. I chose to take 2 months, which was the best decision ever, because when I get the most stressed is when I have something else to do. And like my babies are crying and I'm like, but I have to get this email done. And it's just this stress that I didn't want the first 2 months. I wanted to be able to bond. I wanted to be able to be a good mom. I wanted to be present. I share this and it's hard because when you work for yourself, you're like, how do you give yourself 2 months? People are like, but you're still posting on Instagram. Yo, Instagram stories are easy. I hop on there, no big deal. This takes planning. There's a lot of stuff that goes on with YouTube videos and blogs and stuff like that. So I took a break from all content creation that took some planning. So I would highly recommend that book. Not only does it kind of explain that you need to chill, it also gives you a ton of recipes for like nourishing. So I did a huge Whole Foods pickup of all of these things that are good for smoothies, good for soups. Bone broth was a big one, and just like warm foods, and just made sure that I had those available so that I could just make them afterwards. The nourishment and the accepting that it was okay to not do anything, and that mind shift was important. Because even now I'm 2 months postpartum and people are like, that's still pretty early to get back to work. I'm excited to do it, but I'm also already stressing. So it's really helpful if your partner can take time off, especially with your second, because your first feels like they have the most energy in the whole wide world, and there might be like a transition period where they're getting used to the new baby. Aaliyah did really well except for her sleep, and so that was kind of stressful. Seth had a month off and it was incredible. Like, it was just so nice to have someone else helping cook, clean, do laundry, tell you that it's okay to rest, take the kid to the park. If your partner can get time off, that's really, really helpful. Also this time, like, I've already made the decisions. We do delayed vaccines, so I know what vaccine schedules are coming. I really stopped looking at the apps to see like what she should be doing, and I just enjoy her as she is. I feel like there's just less stress. Like with your first, you're like, I know nothing about anything, and I need to know everything about everything. That's how I felt, at least. I know that's not for everyone. But with this one, like, we got sick in the first 3 weeks, and I was pretty chill about it because the doctors told us that everything would be fine. I think if it was my first, I'd be losing my GD mind. And a huge reason why I think this one is easier than the first postpartum is that it's not the start of a freaking pandemic. Like, I was so paranoid about getting sick and getting COVID and like not knowing what that would mean, and just my family still worked. So I was like, well, you can't come over then because I don't want COVID in my house. And so I wouldn't let anyone come over. I thought I could do it all by myself. But it was a very lonely time, a very stressful time, because I was trying to do everything on my own. I was trying to learn everything, plus keep up on everything. Like, the pandemic really made it difficult. This time I've been a little bit more relaxed. We've seen more people in the beginning, which is good just for my mental health and social self. Also, the transition from 1 to 2 is way easier than 0 to 1 for me, because from 0 to 1, I went from carefree Shay, living on a one-way, traveling wherever I wanted, going somewhere in 20 minutes notice, like no big deal. I'm just gonna go do and be whatever I want, no responsibility. And it was such a shift to now have this baby that was completely reliant on me. She didn't take a bottle. We breastfed all the time. It was beautiful. Like, I loved that I had her and that we got this incredible bond, but it was such a shift. It was hard. Oh, what's wrong? And then from 1 to 2, I went from mom Shay of 1 to mom Shay of 2. And so I was already used to like getting up early and figuring out how to use my time well, and knowing that I needed to feed me and others, and knowing that I needed to potty myself and others. And it was just easier. Like, I was already in mom mode. As a family, we were already in family mode. We just added another little nugget. So I think that made a huge difference as well. So if you are concerned about going from 1 to 2 like I was like, this is gonna be just so challenging. It's challenging for sure. But you kind of know the things a little bit the second time, and you're not as worried about everything. I would say if you are pregnant, consider encapsulating your placenta. Look into it a little bit. You kind of just have to believe it yourself, because like I said, there's not a ton of research. Take care of yourself. Ask for help. Nourish your body. Give yourself some time off. And if you need to talk to someone, do not be ashamed of it, because our hormones do insane things. It's a huge life shift. I feel like therapy is definitely becoming more mainstream, where there's not as much of a stigma around it, but please just go get help. I go just for like maintenance, just to make sure that I'm still doing okay. I hope this video was helpful for you. I hope that you got some tools and like reminders that you do need to slow down, and you do need to take care of yourself, and you do need to ask for help from your partner or from family. You do need to create the village around you if you do not have it. Your neighbors, your friends, ask for help and offer help. Give yourself some time. Nourish your body and ask for help, right? Yes. This is the content that you really want. Esme. Hi. that is all. See you next time.